Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. This is your host, Sinikka Waugh, with the Even Better podcast. And this is part of our ongoing mission to help people have even better work days so that together we can co-create better communities. And I am absolutely delighted to visit today and to bring on this podcast a guest who is actively engaged in just that, making better communities, making better workdays all around. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
And what a pleasure, Sinikka. I've been waiting for this for months.
This is awesome. So for those of you who don't know Mike Rice by name or by voice, he is the president of Aureon Consulting. He is part of the strategic growth of that organization. And he was before Aureon Consulting. Midwest Project Partners is a familiar name here in the Des Moines area. And Mike was instrumental in that and a founding partner in Midwest Technical Partners. So I know Mike from his background in technology and in projects and in staffing. And I'm delighted in his ability to build relationships and really to connect with people to make sure that the solution is matching the need and that the two organizations are working together effectively. But I also know that he serves on the board for the single parent provision, where he's just making things even better in that space. And Mike, you can share a little bit about that as that weaves into the conversation. And I know that Mike is committed to increasing STEM interest and driving economic development. So Mike, you're out there all over the place, right? You're doing your day job. You are volunteering on the time. You're putting in your time in technology, the Technology Association of Iowa and the professional organizations there. And you and I both share a rock solid foundation of faith. And that is part of how you show up every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
Tell us your story.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I'll weave a bunch of my faith in here. And one thing that I've learned as I've matured in my faith is, I was one that for years kind of compartmentalized my faith. I call it that. I also call it, I was kind of the 1 foot in, 1 foot out guy. Mm-hmm. And I'll get into it as we walk through this, but faith is who I am. So it's in every aspect of what I do in business and personal. It's just who I am. So I'm a follower of Jesus and I'm proud of it. And he makes me better. He makes me who I am, and I'm nothing without him. So yeah, I'm interested to jump into some details with you.
Well, let's do that. So you're sharing with us today 5 discoveries on the detour. And I love this. Let's not lose sight of that word right there. 5 discoveries on the detour from success to significance. So set that up for us a little bit. Take us through the title here. Where are we going?
Yeah, I would say the younger Mike was always focused on success, right? What is success? And that means it's the American dream, right? It's making money. It's having success in a title or in a business or whatever. What I realized pretty quickly is success is about me. Significance is about other people. And so it took me, I'm a little slow, but it took me a long time to figure out, man, my focus needs to be off myself and on others. And that's where the significance part comes in. And so looking forward to unpacking more on that with you.
All right. Well, let's just dive right in then. So these are five discoveries. So things that you've discovered on that detour from success to significance. And, before as people are listening, the thing that I would want them to realize is that by all standards, you are a highly successful individual, but there's something different about you. There's something different between success and significance. I mean, you have an executive leadership role. You live and participate in the community in the way that allows others to kind of see cool things. And a lot of us would describe that. You've got a, great family, great relationships there. A lot of us would describe that as successful, but you've shifted your mindset to something even cooler than success. And that's around significance. So just as we're listening, these words are coming from someone who is by all standards successful. So let's talk about the first one. So the first discovery that you made was that there's a crossroad moment. There's a fork in the road. So tell us about your fork in the road.
Yeah. So my fork in the road was almost 10 years ago now. I went through a divorce, obviously a tough thing to go through. At the time, my son was 10 or 11 years old. And, going through that, the biggest thing that happened going through that time was just the thought of not spending every day with him. I mean, that was probably the biggest struggle that I had. The thing that I learned a couple of things. And again, just God teaching moments, right, through the valleys of life. And the things that I've learned is we grow in the valleys, right? We don't grow on the mountains, right? So I view the valleys very differently today than I did even 10 years ago, as I, can kind of look back in the rearview mirror on the challenges, the obstacles, the trials. That's where I grew. And from my faith standpoint, that's where God grows me. That's where he stretches me to making more like him. Now, it's not fun. It's not comfortable at all. It's challenging. But, now that I get to these other places in life, I just have a much better perspective looking back and understanding that there was purpose. There's always purpose in everything he does. And there's purpose in pain. So I went through pain. I went through pain for a few reasons. Number one, what I discovered was money was my God, or success was my God. I was all consumed with making the next deal, what the bank account was, what the how. That's where I was focused. And I didn't really realize it, right? But at this moment in losing my marriage and losing, what I had, that's what God showed me very, very clearly. So I got him back on the throne. Again, there's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with having success if it's in the right spot. So I just had it out of kilter. The other part I would share is at that point, I was that 1 foot in, 1 foot out guy. So this moment got me to full surrender. So I've never been able to describe, hey, I let God have this and I kept these things. All I know is I only let God have so much. And then I got to that point. So this was 2012. So I got to this point. I'm just fully surrendered. I'm all in, right? I mean, and it was a pivotal moment that, you can go down a bad road after going through a personal crisis like that really easily. And unfortunately, a lot of people do. But, I was fortunate. I mean, I grew up, my mom was saved as a young adult. And so I was saved as a 5-year-old, right? So I grew up in that, but I was never fully all in until 2012. And that was what got me to that point. So although that was painful, man, I appreciate that moment that God allowed in my life.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've heard you talk about asking yourself a question in those moments, like in those valleys, because you talk about we grow in the valley. So as you're thinking back on that, or when you hit your next crossroad or your next fork in the road or your next valley, how do you deal with that? What's a question that you ask yourself to get through that?
Yeah. And again, this is just maturity over time. And now it's like, okay, so I pause, like, Lord, what am I supposed to learn here? What are you trying to teach me in this moment? Because again, he doesn't use these situations in our life without meaning, without purpose. So I know there's meaning here. So I just literally try to pause in the moment and just try to ask, what am I supposed to learn here? And then I just try to listen. And it's not instant, right? I mean, I wish it was. I'd love God to just send me a text and say, hey, here's what I want you to do. That'd be, the easy road to do it. That's just not how he works. But, he works through his people. He works through his word. So I just get really intentional about, just asking that question. Lord, I'm open. I want to understand what you're trying to teach me here because I know it's for my good.
Yeah. Well, that's going to tie us into the second discovery. So the first discovery was this idea about a fork in the road, a change, a crossroad where your direction has to shift just a little bit. The second one, this discovery that you've talked about is one around personal growth. And I think that ties right into that idea of what am I supposed to be learning here? But how are some of the ways that you grew? What's your personal growth discoveries in this detour from success to significance?
Yeah, I'll just try to unpack a couple here. I could probably talk an hour in this space for sure. But, one thing that I learned is, man, I was living it alone. Again, because of God, he allowed it. I've had some amount of quote unquote worldly success. Mm-hmm. So if you would look even 10 years ago at Mike and look at his like, man, he's got it all. He's got this. He's got a great family. You know what? It's the glass house, right? It was broken, but nobody knew it because I was really good at putting on a front. Like everything's great. At the end of the day, we're all made for relationships. We are. And so what I didn't have at the time, I didn't have those people in my life that were in my corner that I felt comfortable enough to go have these conversations with. So I walked that journey pretty alone, unfortunately. But one of the things that our pastor has said for years that just is so right, independent Christian living is failed Christian living, right? I learned it. I learned it firsthand because I wasn't in community. I wasn't around guys that were pouring into me. I learned really quickly that I wasn't a really intentional husband. I learned really quickly that I was too passive in my home. I thought a reasonably good leader at work, but I got lazy at home, right? And I was passive at home. I believe wholeheartedly the issues that we're having in our world start in the home.
Yeah.
It starts in homes that are either fatherless or not led well by fathers. And again, you had mentioned me being, I've got the opportunity to serve on the board of single parent provision, in the state of Iowa. And I won't commercial this, but it just rings true to my own experience. 30% of families in Iowa are single parent families, 30%.
Wow.
There's the zip code of where our church is, Life Change Church, is 50317. 47% of those homes are single parent homes. So for me, what I learned of, again, just being too passive in my home, God created me as a man to lead my home, right? To lead under his authority. And I didn't do that well. And what I did, and again, just God orchestrated this, and I'll be brief with this little tangent as well, but it kind of goes with this personal growth is, what I learned really quickly is I wasn't a very intentional husband. Probably the thing I was best at in these three areas was an intentional father. I was always an intentional father, but I was not a very intentional husband, and I was too passive in my home. So what, God called on my heart was he wanted me to start this grassroots men's group, kind of probably a year after I got divorced. And he challenged me, again, not verbally, but he challenged me of, I want you to invite guys outside of your church, because that's easy. That's easy, right? That's the easy ask. And so I did. And so I send this note out. So long story short, we start meeting on a monthly basis with some guys. It was never a Bible study. That was never the intention of it. But I was always intentional about carving biblical principles around what we talked about, right? So if you talk Bible study, a bunch of guys probably aren't interested in coming, right? So I had to disguise it a little bit. But those were the three legs of the stool, if you will, that we talked about. Being intentional husbands, being intentional fathers, and being an active leader of our home, of what God's called. So that was for about 4 years. I led that. There was probably 15 or 20 guys that showed up on a monthly basis. I kind of had this routine of, again, weekly is aggressive ask for some guys, right? And so we just met monthly, but then I did a weekly text. That was my way to engage them weekly, where I just encourage them in one of those areas. Anyway, so that was, again, born out of a struggle, born out of something that I failed at. My marriage, I failed, right? And so, but God took me through that, got me to the other side, and then put me in a position to help train and teach other men of maybe where I was deficient. So that was just a cool thing that I would have never had I not been through that trial.
Yeah, you bet. Well, and I've heard you say this before, that success is kind of about the I, it's about the me, whereas significance then is about others. So that was playing out in the Bible study and in your experiences there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I probably couldn't have defined it that way back then, but in retrospect, in the rear view mirror, like I like to say, that's exactly what that was. I didn't know what it was, but that's what it was. I was living out that piece of significance because I was pouring into other men to help them not to have to go through what I went through. And try to encourage them. I always called it the second shift, right? We leave our day job, we go home to the second shift, right? We don't go home to the recliner. It's the second shift. You need to pour into your wife. You need to pour into your family. I mean, that's our job. We can't just give them the leftovers. And I think it's so easy to do, to just get, and again, I'm kind of this career focused minded person. I love what I do. It's a big inner driver for me. So it's easy to get exhausted at the end of the day. But man, the people we love most, we better bring some energy home to them.
Bring some home to them. Well, this is, as you talked about the second shift. So the first shift, that's your professional growth. And I know that you are deeply passionate about the work that you do and your own growth as a leader and within your organization and within the community. So let's talk about that, the discoveries around professional growth that you have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's been a big leap for me. I was a relationship sales guy for years. I was a manager by title for a lot of years. And I use that specifically and intentionally because I wasn't a leader. I maybe thought I was a leader back then, but again, it was more about me than them, right? It was about me climbing a ladder, et cetera. And really what, God's kind of just churned in my heart, it was kind of moved me from, that relationship development sales guy into this guy that is excited about leading people, talking about vision, creating strategy, trying to get a culture of a company that's on board. And those things, Sinikka, it's crazy. 5, 6, 7 years ago, I could have cared less about those things. I really thought they were unimportant. So again, just lack of maturity and just growth that, I contribute to God. He's shepherded me through, these personal things and now these career things to shift me to this other side that I have this drive and passion in this area that I never had before. So it's fun. And I try to lead with love, number one, right? I mean, yep. Jesus is love. I love my team. I love my team. Yep. I'm proud to say I've led this thing for now almost 5 years. I haven't one turnover. Nobody's left. Yep. That's amazing. I have a great team. I try to lead with authenticity. I try to lead with trust and being transparent. I'm overly transparent with my team at times, but I feel like that's the best way that they will trust me, because I'm going to share the good stuff and the not so good stuff. Right. And so we've gelled together. The one thing I put together again in prayer, probably three and a half years ago, I think it was entering our 2019 year, trying to figure out vision, like where are we going, and I remember where it came to me. I was on a plane ride with my son. I was taking him out to an Oregon Ducks football game. So he was a senior in high school. I promised him he was a big Oregon Ducks fan because the unis were cool, right? With Nike, et cetera. And so I remember being on the airplane with him and just really just kind of thinking about this vision, like how am I trying to structure this and put together? And what I got from it was a really simple vision statement for our company. In at least my division of our company is our purpose is beyond profit. It's about significance and impact. And for me, again, as a leader of this company, I'm accountable for profitability, right? And I get that, right? We have shareholders, we have owners, they're stakeholders. So I'm accountable for that. I get it. But for me, as I've grown in my career, what else are we in business for, right? I mean, is that it? Is that all we're doing? Are we just here to make money? No. So how do we make a difference? How do we make a significant impact on the communities where we live, work, and serve, right? So I won't unpack all of this, but our team does a lot of things with, you had mentioned, STEM scholarships. We have a scholarship program that we've developed out of our business. We're literally the hands and feet into our community of serving. Our team is currently in this rotation of doing Meals on Wheels. Last Friday, we did Meals on the Heartland. So we're intentionally in our community serving on a consistent basis. I have a team internally that's in charge of those activities, right? So what I've learned in my career is nobody's going to love to do things if they're always my idea, right? So what I try to do in leadership is empower my team. I've got an amazing team. I'll give them a couple of thoughts and ideas and I let them go. And so now they're owning this piece of our mission. So it's just not this fun little vision statement that we do. Like we talk about it all the time. The phrase we use, I used it on a call literally 10 minutes before I jumped on with you, with my team. We're talking about this exclusive opportunity, which is amazing. But we're always concerned about delivery, especially in a tight talent market, right? So to me, our phrase is always do the right thing, right? Yeah. So we're always going to do the right thing no matter what. So we want to serve our customers well. We want to be honest and transparent. Yes, would we love this business? Absolutely. But I only want it if we can truly partner and deliver like we can. So be transparent back to them and let them know the real struggles. And and just carve up a solution together. So yeah, again, I can unpack a whole bunch more there, but I'll stop so we can keep moving. So
well, a couple of things that I want to just react to on that one is that in your professional growth, that movement from an individual contributor to truly a leader. So you're right, sales guy, a sales manager, whatever.
Sure.
But when you shifted from, it's not about me, it's not about Mike's success, it's about significance, it's about others, it's about pouring back into others, it's about leading others, it's about significance in our space, to our customers, to the team. That's when you have seen tremendous growth in that space. I mean, like our conversations are different than they were 6 years ago.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
So cool. So any decent resources, any tips for helping people like even think about conversations in a different way as they're looking to tap into this detour from success to significance?
Yeah, as I think a little more, I mean, I was this sales guy, this networker that back in the day, I was always, I would go have coffee with Sinikka to see what I could get from Sinikka. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, that's just how I was wired, right? And what can I get business from her? Does somebody else know somebody that she know can help introduce? And so what I've learned a handful of years ago, kind of through this last 10-year journey, is man, I go to give. I mean, that's the focus. I'm like, I'm there, like, how can I help this person that's in front of me? And I literally could care less what's coming back. It's how do I pour in and help that person be successful? And I just truly believe having that mindset has been a game changer. We get a ton of referrals, and again, just by doing the right things, helping other people. I've always said, if we're focused on the right things, the P&L takes care of itself,
Yes,
right? The P&L takes care of itself. So if we're focused on the P&L, we're not focused on the right things. So from a resource, so you mentioned resource. So this has probably been maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I read this book. Phenomenal. Highly recommend it to the listeners. It's called The Go Giver. I don't have the author handy, but it's called The Go Giver. And the whole principle is around that. It's, what are you giving to other people? Awesome book. It really helps kind of rewire your brain and your mindset around business and networking. It's a game changer.
Nice. Okay, great. Thank you. So that's going to tie us into the fourth one. And if you've just joined us, we're here with Mike Rice, and we're exploring 5 discoveries on the detour from success to significance. The first one was about that crossroad moment and what do you do in that moment. The second one was about personal growth. And we've just worked on some professional growth. And I think that's going to tie to your fourth point, which was around habits. Let's talk about your habits, Mike. How does that play out in your detour from success to significance?
So, Sinikka, I assume you want to talk about my good habits, not my bad ones, right?
Well, we've all got bad habits. Maybe we should talk about those.
We'll just focus in on the things that I'm doing relatively well today. Well, I'll tell you, my daily routine is what makes a huge difference. And so I wake up, I'm early. I'm not in the workout mode like I need to be. So that's taking a backseat, but it's taking a backseat to an important thing in the Bible, in the Word, every day. Probably for the last 6 months, I've started listening to Pastor Rick's Daily Hope. So Rick Warren, pastor of Saddleback in California. Actually, my daughter steered me here a handful of months ago. She started listening to him. So it's just messages, snippets of messages that are they probably average 20 minutes, Monday through Friday. So my routine in the morning is I listen to that. I read a couple of chapters in the Bible and I pray. So it's literally probably my 40 minutes of personal time with my Savior. That starts my day. And I can't tell you the difference that it makes when I'm starting my day like that. Doesn't mean my day's perfect. Doesn't mean my day comes without challenges. I'm just better equipped to handle the problems and the challenges in my day if I'm seated right there. Because I look at problems differently today. Now I get excited about how do we solve versus, oh no, I've got another issue here. It's like, no, let's dig in here. Everything's solvable, right? Let's figure it out. So from a daily standpoint, Sinikka, that's been absolutely game changing. I probably used that one 3 times now. So, but it is, I mean, it just is, it has been for me. Something else that I started, I think probably 3 years ago, I have a word of the year. There's an author. He's great on Twitter. He's a great follow on Twitter, John Gordon. Okay. So he's written several books that I've read. The Energy Boss is one off the top of my head, but he's got several. But he's done this, I think, for years, but he has a word of the year. So like, what's the one word that you're focused on? So a few years ago, it was influence. So how do I best use my influence for the kingdom? It was about Mike Rice and his status. It was about, how do I best use my influence? How do I steward my influence? So that was super important. Another word that I had was impact. We've talked about impact already. So as I operate in my daily and weekly, monthly fashion, those are words that will always come back to me that I use. So that word of the year, I don't have one for 2022 yet. So I'm in kind of that mode. Usually December is when I hone in. Okay. So I'm prayerfully seeking, what the Lord wants that word to be for me to focus on. Last year, or current year, I should say, is invest. And that's investing in all aspects of life, right? Not just stocks and bonds and whatever, but it's investing in people's lives, right? It's that significance piece again. Like, where am I investing in others? Where am I investing my time? How am I investing my life into my family? Those things that are important. So that's been super helpful. I've never been a reader, wish I was, but I audible a lot now. So I read a class, listen to a lot of books on leadership, on faith, kind of that faith and leadership intertwined. Listen to a handful of podcasts, including the one I'm fortunate to be talking on today with you. But yeah, there's so many great resources, right? I mean, with metaverse, if you will, out there today with technology, I mean, everything is at our fingertips, from podcasts to books to, I mean, you can Google anything and have tips on, so it's easy to find good data out there to have good habits. But yeah, those are just a couple of things that I would point out to the listeners that have been super impactful for me.
I love it. That word that you picked for 2021, that word invest, that doesn't come without a cost, right? That's right. Investing time, not wasting. It's intentionality. And sometimes investing is like influence or impact. Maybe even one of those could happen just because I'm there or just because I'm showing up. But investing is, man, I gotta give more. I gotta really draw something out to invest. What a great word.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so rewarding just to live in that spirit, right? And I'm far from perfect and I screw up every day, right? So I don't want the listeners to misunderstand that, man. I'm a sinner saved by grace, period. I am who I am because of him. Any success I have is because of him. I mean, so I'm a zero, but because of him, he has instilled in everybody. And this is, again, something for the listeners that I'm super passionate about. Everyone has a purpose, right? God created everyone with a purpose, and everyone is unique and different, right? Yep. No two people are the same, and no two people have the same purpose. So if Mike Rice is not using his purpose for the kingdom, it's missed.
It's missed.
Nobody else is doing it. And so these are just kind of things that I'm embracing and learning on this journey from success to significance. I mean, if I'm not doing what I'm called to do, nobody else is doing it. Right. It's lost.
It's lost. And that ties us to the fifth point, right? The fifth one you mentioned was your goal. Like what's the goal? So that purpose, that goal, shape that up for us a little bit.
Yeah. So kind of back these last, couple, 3 years, I've never had a life verse, right? Grew up in church, there's a ton of great verses out there, but I've never really had one that I was like, man, that's my verse. Well, probably 3 years ago, kind of going through this vision exercise, if you will, with the company, with our division, God gave me Matthew 6:33, which is seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all the rest will be given to you. And that's what I live every day. I do my best to live that. So Sinikka, what that tells me, if I'm focused on his kingdom, he's got everything else. So if I wake up and I'm going to go, let's say I've got a board meeting later today that I'm stressed about right at work, but I've got a guy that wants to have coffee with me because he's going through a struggle. Well, what that verse tells me, hey, Mike, you go take care of that guy, that relationship. I got the board stuff. So it has been amazing for me to have that as a foundational verse for my life. It drives everything I do. Seek ye first the kingdom. Am I doing that? So I do my best every day to seek his will, his kingdom first. So that's been amazing. The other pivot that I'll give you is I'd mentioned our vision statement for Aureon Consulting. Our purpose is beyond profit. It's about significance and impact. Well, God kind of steered my own personal vision statement that really blossomed out of that. This one will resonate if the listeners will recall where I started with money being my God. So that's why I started 10 years ago. And so where he gave it is, and I say our, because this is my wife and I, but our purpose is beyond personal wealth and security. It's about significantly impacting the kingdom for Jesus. How cool is that? It's not about Mike's personal wealth. No. And I put security in there purposely for me because I can lean on, I need to make sure my family's secure financially. So that's where I can stumble. So that's why I purposely have that in that vision statement. It's so much more beyond that. It's like, how are we best significantly impacting the kingdom for Jesus? That's the drive. Because as you know, in your faith, I know our faith is similar. We've had the conversations. It's going away. This is not our home.
This is not our home.
All of this stuff, the hustle and bustle of what we spend our time doing, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. When I'm at work, what matters is how am I loving my team? How am I growing my team? Maybe I can't overtly talk about Jesus at this, corporation like maybe I would prefer, but am I loving them like Jesus would? Do they see me? Could they see Jesus in my life because of the way I act? Right. So that's what I focus on. Yep. So it's more around my actions versus my words when it comes to that. The other thing that I just get so focused on, I guess I'll go back to one point to kind of close a loop on kind of the business piece, is I kind of got stuck 2 or 3 years ago in my mind is still about making deals, right? That's how I'm wired, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so I didn't feel like that was the right thing. Like, why am I still stuck here? Well, I kind of had this aha moment, like, you know what? It's good. Mike, I built, and so this is God speaking to me, right? Mike, I built you this way. I built you this way for a purpose. Just use it for me, not you.
Yep.
It was like, bam, that was it. I mean, so now it's like, now I have release that, hey, he's built me this way. He's built me perfectly in his image. I just need to use it for his glory, not mine. So I don't do that perfectly, right? I wish I did. None of us do, right? We all fall short, but that's my challenge. That's my goal. As I'm closing that loop, that's the goal. Just use what he's given for him, not me.
Yeah, for sure. Like it is the cry of my heart that when I see my Savior, he says to me, well done, good and faithful
servant. Amen to that. Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal.
I want to impact the kingdom for him.
Yep.
For sure.
Amen to that. That's awesome.
As listening to you, Mike, as you talked about game changer, right? You said it 5 times. You got 5 different points here. These are discoveries. They're game changing discoveries, but they are, because you're playing a different game now, Mike. It is. You were playing the game of success. You were on the Mike Rice show to, your own glory, your own success, looking at things the way they were. And it's changed. You're a different person. You're seeing significance in different ways. And you're just seeing wonderful, wonderful results from that. Right? I mean, you're not any less successful than you were before, but now you're making a significant impact.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm less focused. I'm probably more successful because I'm not focused on it. And again, it's just doing the right things, seeking the kingdom first. Again, the Lord wants to bless. That's who he is. He wants to bless his children. So I'm just now in a better position to give him opportunity to bless me because I'm seeking him first.
You bet. Oh, I love this. So you've had this big aha that success was about you, but significance, which is really where you're going now. And I see it in our conversations, you have so much more joy. You smile more.
Most days. Yes. Most days.
Most days. Right. Oh, wonderful. Well, any closing thoughts, anything else you want to share with us as we wrap these up? We've been here listening to and enjoying a conversation with Mike Rice, talking about 5 discoveries on the detour from success to significance.
And all these game changers, right?
Yeah, they're all game changers. Your game has changed.
There you go. Yeah, just a couple parting shots, I would say. This is one from my mom. I got to give a shout out to my mom.
Sure.
Growing up with her, and she was a single mom. Again, kind of my tie to single parent provision too. But one of the things that stayed with me forever is you can't outgive the Lord. And that has stuck with me every phase of every piece of my life. Again, kind of back to my previous comment of he wants to bless, right? And so it's literally doing the best we can to be open hands with what comes in to allow that to shift to somebody else to the best of our ability. So that's been huge for me. The other thing that just in my prayer life that is different is I've been taught, start thanking God in advance for answers to prayer. So it's praying with expectation. Not with, man, I hope. No, expectancy. I'm praying and again, always seeking his will, right? Not mine, his will or mine, but praying with the expectancy that he's going to answer. And he's always going to answer. It may not be yes, it may not be what I want, but he's always going to answer. He's always going to answer. I said 2, but I'm going to give you 3.
Okay, I'll take 1 more.
So the other thing that has really worked for me is I always prayed for open doors. I mean, I think that's a pretty common thing. Yeah. Where I've got shifted over the past few years is now I pray for closed doors. Those are easier for me because I'm this deal maker. I'm this business guy. I can open up 5 doors in the next 30 days. Yeah. I just don't want those doors if they're not his. So what I try to get to is whatever I'm pursuing, my prayer is not open. My prayer is, Lord, if that's not your door, please close it because I only want your will, not mine. Even if that looks amazing and I can see all the things that look great, if it's not what you want, close the door.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I can think of steps on the journey of your clear next step where those last 2 points really resonate with me. And one of them is the reality about how God has always brought the right person into our organization at the right moment. The talent that we needed at that moment has always been right there. And so when we're ready to hire, when we're ready to look for someone, I just pray with that expectation. Okay, Lord, who you got today? Right. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. He's really good at what he does, right? He's
He
really
is.
good. He's
He
this
is.
perfect God that has a plan for all of our lives if we just find it and seek it and ask him. He wants to reveal it.
Yeah, and he works all things together for the good of those who love him. It's
Amen. Yeah,
even
absolutely.
better. So, Mike, what is it? This wouldn't be the Even Better podcast if I didn't ask my final closing question. What's making you even better these days?
What's making me even better, man? I'm going to go back, Sinikka, to one of the things I've already shared.
Okay.
It's been my 40 minutes of quiet time to start every day.
Yeah, for sure.
That foundational piece for me is, I couldn't encourage the listeners more in that space. We always make time for what's important. This world is busy. It's crazy. It's easy to flip on social media, listen to whatever. But man, if we don't dial in and give him some personal time, we're missing out. And that's what I found out, and just missing out. That is for me. If there's what's changing my world right now, it's that.
Nice. Love it. Well, Mike, thank you. Thanks for making time today to share these insights with us. I'm so grateful for your time and for your joy and for the example that you set.
Yeah, no, what an honor to be here. I'm just thrilled and humbled that you asked me to jump on here and unpack a little bit of my journey. And it was so fun. And again, I could probably go another 30 minutes, but I know we're done. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, so thanks for joining. And for those of you who are listening, if you didn't catch the beginning of this, rewind, go back to the beginning and enjoy this session with Mike Rice and his 5 discoveries on the detour from success to significance. On behalf of all of us at Your Clear Next Step, we want to say thank you so much for listening. And we hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.